thank you for tuning in on another Board Game Couch video review. Today we are going to talk about a new role-playing game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter, and the game is called Neon Sanctum. I received a prototype copy of the designers, which I'm very grateful for. And in the game also work with cards. If you remember, I did a previous video about another role-playing game with cards called Fate. And when the designers of Neon Sanctum contacted me, I was interested to see how they would incorporate these cards into their game. And I must say I was surprised to find a very unique way they handle the cards, completely different of what they were doing, the designers of Fate. Now, what is Neon Sanctum all about? Well, it's set in a post-apocalyptic catastrophe where a lot of the planet was destroyed, humanity is decimated. There are a lot of zones that are inhabitable, mutants are spawning, the plants are very dangerous to the humans, and they need to settle in three different kinds of cities, the biggest city being Neon City. So humanity always has adapted to very bad situations, and it's also the case in Neon Sanctum. So in the game you will be able to create your own character, and you will make that character based on different cards you are choosing. And what's a really nice touch to the game is that those cards are actually also your health pool. So the Dungeon Master is not present in this game, it's a deck master. It's a nice touch to the fact that the game plays with cards. So what can you expect of the video preview? I'm going to show you the components that come with the game. I'm going to do a little explanation of what the cards has on them, how they are being used in the game. We are going to create a character together. We are going to face some encounters, look how the combat works, how challenges work outside of combat. And then I'm going to offer you my conclusion. So a lot of things to look forward to, and I won't keep you waiting. Let's give you an overview of what the game will bring. Okay, let me show you the different components that will come with the game. Please be aware what you are seeing right here are prototype components. Some of them I printed out and cut and pasted together. Others are prototype cards I received, and even those tokens I made myself. I pasted several illustrations on these wooden tokens. But all of this would have to be the content of the game when you are pledging the game and once the game is released. So what can you see? The game will come with two big maps, which you will be able to use to play your several scenarios on. You will receive several tokens for opponents in the game, as well as characters to present yourself into the game. You will receive two 10-sided dice. These dice are used to look if you are able to overcome the challenges that will await you. You also have different NPC cards that can be used by the deck master to make encounters, challenge you to use in combat. They have different stats, and I will explain those in a while. You also receive several player cards, which will help the players taking part into the scenarios. They can choose a name, several traits, flaws, they can take notes. They all have a basic action. You can keep track of your remaining experience, your sex, your race, and you have these different illustrations where you can enter your speed, your defense, your action points, and your health. So these are the player cards. Then you have several item cards. Like I said before, I will explain those more in a bit. You have different skill cards. There are several types of abilities you can choose from. You have combat, and it also has a different color for each different ability. Engineering, medical, physical, science, social, survival. So you will use these cards to create your character, and what is a nice touch about it is the deck master can choose to not include several of these abilities into a kind of scenario. So when you create a new character, you are limited in the abilities you are able to choose. So this gives a nice touch to several scenarios you are about to be playing, so that it's always different each time you play. Also, and I will not use those into this video because it adds another complexity to the game, but you are also able to choose several mutations. This prototype contains one. It's a troll, and it also includes some cybernetics. You can choose. You need some cash to install them or buy them, and you may have to visit some medical facilities to install them, which also give you some nice benefits. So for instance, this one gives you +2 to hacking checks, but gives you a -3 mental defense, so it also has a disadvantage. So these are all the components that come with the game. I hope this offers you a nice overview of it. Now let me explain some of the cards, how they work, and afterwards we will start creating a character which we will use to face some encounters. Okay, let's have a closer look at the different components that will come with the game. I won't cover the player cards anymore because I already explained those. What you see is you also get two 10-sided dice, which will be used by the deck master to give you a certain difficulty when you face a challenge. So for instance, the deck master might say that you need a score of 11. You need to overcome some challenge. 11 is the average difficulty. Everything below that is considered to be an easy skill check. Everything above 11 is considered to be a harder skill check. So for instance, if I throw now, I throw at 12. Oh, it was 12. Oh no, it's even better, a 15. So I scored, I overcome the challenge, and actually I have a higher rate of success, which would allow me to get some additional benefits from the deck master. Now, let's have a look at the cards. Now, before I'm going to explain each thing on the card, I have to introduce a concept. When you're creating your character, you will have a set of cards that make up your character into your hands. When you play those cards, those cards go to a cooldown deck. Now you can buy those cards back with action points. So each card has a buyback value on the card that you can spend to get the card back into your hand. Now what happens if you are getting damage, when you have wounds? Then you need to discard your cards into a wound deck. So after each encounter, combat or just in the scenario, you get the cards back from your cooldown deck, but not those of your wound deck. You will need to have healing cards to get those cards back. So I guess you already can figure out how the game works. When you run out of cards and all your cards are into the wound deck, you get unconscious and you have a chance of dying. And of course that's something you will have to prevent in the game. So now let's have a closer look at those skill cards or ability cards to explain how these work into the game. So for instance, what you see here is a level 1 card with the ability combat and a skill type melee. When you are in a combat situation, you have two phases into the game. You have a combat phase and you have a defense phase, or a phase where you can play utility items and or items you have with you. So this icon shows you will need to use this card in your attack phase. Others will have both symbols, both defense or attack, so you can use it in both phases, and others will show you can only use it in the defense phase. Now the next icon you can see shows you the range. There are different kind of ranges into the game. Some cards have an actual range. This icon refers to the item you will be using while playing this skill card. Why? Because some cards also require some items. So this card requires a melee item. So you will need to have a look at the item you are using together with the skill card to determine the range. Then you have the name of the card, drive back, and the buyback value. So the value you will need to spend action points of to get the card back from your cooldown card. You also see the target, it's one enemy. The difficulty check. So if you have this icon, you will need to check at the defense value of your opponent, and it says -2. So for instance, if your opponent has a defense value of 12, you will need to roll a 10 to actually be successful with this item, and you can, or skill, excuse me, and you can apply this effect. Some of the cards for instance, these cards will have a sustain value and an unlock value. Well, what does this mean? When you use this item, you will need to put the card horizontal, and as long as you can pay this action point value during the game, the effect is still in place. The item is fixed while the card remains locked. The sustain phase, if you can play that, the card is considered locked. You can unlock the card again, but when you do that, of course, the item you were fixing is considered to be damaged again, and the effect is not applied anymore. So that's what concerns the several skill cards and ability cards. You also have item cards. So several items also have some skills, and you can also see the level of the skills that come with the item. Now, if you want to play a level 1 skill, you actually have to pay it with action points, but you also need to have a skill card of that level into your hand or cooldown deck that corresponds with the engineering ability, for instance, in this case. So you have the opportunity to choose from different skills that come with the item. And as you can see, some of the item also has a range on them. So then the only icon I need to explain is this icon. Well, some items can get defect. So when does that happen? When you roll the dice and you roll a natural 10, or the sum of both dice is 10, then you check if your action is successful, but then you need to check if the item you were using is defect or not. And that's the value you need to get. You take one dice, and for instance now I throw a 1. It's lower than the number that is in the broken star on the card. So that means that my item now is broken and I can't use it anymore unless I'm able to fix it. So that's concerned with the item cards. These NPC cards won't be used by the players but by the deck master, and come in different kinds and sizes, and can be used to create opponents for the players. So also the deck master will need to use these cards to see what are the action points, what's the speed which will allow him to move, what's the defense that will need to be overcome by the other players, and his health. So each character can have several abilities that can be used by the deck master to battle the players. And to overcome these characters, you will need to lower their health, as well as their action points. Then they're out of the game and you can finish a combat situation when you conquer all several opponents. So these are the different cards that come with the game. Now let's create a character together and see how combat and other encounters outside of combat works in the game Neon Sanctum. Okay, let us create a character. So when you start creating a character, the deck master will let you know what kind of character you are going to make. Now for our situation, we will make a rookie character, which allows us 20 skill points to use to create our character. Now when you make a rookie character, you can only use level 1 and level 2 skill cards. You will need to pay 2 skill points for a level 1 card and 3 skill points for a level 2 card. Also, it's very important that when you want to choose, for instance in our case, a level 2 skill cards, you need to have a level 1 skill card first to be able to pick the level 2 skill card. So, in our situation, we are going to create a character named Duke. He's a male human. And I want him to be a melee brawler. He's strong, he's tough, he likes to get up close. And he's also able to heal himself, sustain some little wounds. And he's also kind of skilled in some mechanical engineering stuff. So let's have a look at the melee or the combat cards first. So we can remove all shooting cards. We're not interested in those. So we have the choice of drive back, which will allow us to stun our enemies and also push them back some squares. And we have a melee card with a special ability that if successful we will be able to make a second hit to our enemy. So these cards are really nice. They have also a rather low buyback value, so these are great cards to put into our deck. So these cards will cost us 4 skill points to take in our deck. So we have 16 left. So let's have a look at engineering. We have some electrical skills, hacking skills and mechanical skills. So I want to be able to repair some stuff. So this jury rig will allow me to do so. And I also want to have those second level engineering card. So we will take both these cards. When we take that into account, we already have 4, 6, so we come up to 9 skill cards or skill points we have used. Then we have the medical cards that will allow us to heal ourselves. So I guess I'm going to stick with a level 1 medical card that will give me 1 card of healing and has a buyback value of 2. So we come at 11 spent skill cards. Then we have some physicals. Now I guess I'm going to take the acrobatics because it will give me 1 defense versus ranged attacks, which can be a nice modifier because I'll need to get up close to them. So if I'm able to use dodge, it's a nice card and it also has a rather low buyback value. So we get at 13 when I use this card. Let's have a look at endurance. What does this give me? Target gains soak 1 versus all adjacent attacks. So if another one comes close up to me and does damage, I can do subtract 1 of that damage. So I think that's also a nice card. I already have something that protects me from ranged. Now I also can use this to get lesser damage. So I also going to take this, which will give me 15 used skill cards. I'm not going to use those physicals, I'm not going to use any science, also no social. So then I have these survival cards, subterfuge, damage. The effect is a damage per ally adjacent to target, so that's also a nice thing because it also includes myself. It has a rather high buyback value, but I'm still going to take it. So let's have another look at all the cards I've selected. So let's check our spent skill points. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13, 14, 17. So that means I have 3 experience left. And I'm able to pick a trait. I'm going to pick a trait that cost me 2 skill points, and it's called Troll Skin. And I will need to use 1 willpower to activate this ability, and it will allow me to be resistant to any damage that will come next. Now, willpower is a concept I haven't explained yet. Now, if I'm using willpower, it's granted by the dungeon master or deck master when you do something great in the game. But you also start the game with at least 1 willpower. You can take up the remaining skill points that you haven't used and add 1 to it. So in our instance, I used 2 from those 3, and I come with 1 skill point left. So I start the game with 2 willpower. Now, because I'm a human, I will have 6 action points, a speed of 5 and a defense value of 12. So now I have created my character and I'm able to choose some of the items. Now, it really depends on the deck master how the items are selected. He can grant you the items, he can let you choose 1 or 2 items, or he can grant you some money you will need to buy items with. But for our case, we are going to use some body armor. And let's take this short sword. It's a melee weapon and it really fits our character. So now we have created our character, we have given him some items, and now let's have a look at how the game plays with the encounters that come with it. Okay, let's have a look at the encounters outside of combat. Let's say we are in a situation where we have infiltrated a high security facility and the self-destruct button has been enabled, and in a few moments the facility will blow with us in it. Now, I have some skills and I want to try to disarm the self-destruct mechanism. So the deck masters tell me, okay, you need to have a skill check of 11, an average difficulty, to be able to succeed. And you will need to have an engineering mechanical skill to do so. So what would happen if I want to try to encounter this situation? Now I'm lucky that I'm having cards in my hand that contains the engineering mechanical skill. But for the case of this example, let us say I don't have those cards. Then I'm able to try to get to overcome this by just rolling the dice. In this case, I'm throwing a 9, but because I don't have the right abilities to do so, I have to apply a -2 modifier. So I throw a 7 and I'm not successful, and the dungeon master decides what happens next, and maybe we need to run for our lives to escape the exploding building. Now let's say I have a card that has the engineering ability, but not the mechanical ability that was asked of the deck master to be present. When I have that, I can again try to overcome the difficulty. I throw a 7, but now because I have a card that matches the engineering ability, I don't need to subtract any negative modifier. So my die result stays a 7, but again it's not enough to overcome the situation. When I have both the ability and the right skill, I'm able to use the level of the card as a positive modifier to my die roll. So I'm going to try to get an 11 now. And it's even worse. Oh no, it's not worse. I throw a natural 10 and a 3, it's 13. With the 2 is 15, and now I'm successful. But because I rolled a natural 10, if I had used an item, let us say I was using a toolkit to try to disarm the self-destruct system, I would need to roll 1 die again, and I would have to roll a 3 or higher to be able to use the toolkit later on. I roll a 2, which means this toolkit, if I was using it for the self-destruct system, would be broken and I'm not able to use it anymore. So that's for encounters that come outside of combat. You just need to try to reach the level that was of the difficulty that was appointed to you by the deck master, and you are able to use cards that you have into your hands. Any cards you have used come to your cooldown deck. You are not able to use that anymore in this encounter or in this scenario. Once that scenario is over, you can take all cards into your cooldown deck back into your hands. Now let's have a look at a situation where we are in combat and when you have to face opponents. In this combat scenario, I will be represented by this token, this nice looking douchebag, and I'm going to face this gunman which was appointed to me to overcome by the dungeon master or the deck master. So when we start an encounter, we will take the card that was chosen or the cards that was chosen by the deck master and take your own cards, and we will shuffle them a lot. So let's do this really quickly so I don't know which card is mine anymore. And then they are put down into an initiative river. So, and this time the gunman goes first, and afterwards it's my turn. So let us play as the deck master. So if you have a look, this guy has 3 action points which will be able to spend on movement, 1 action point for movement, and then we can do an attack or something that comes also in the defense phase. So let's have a look at what we are able to do. So the gunman always tries to move to cover, from cover to cover, to get as close as possible and attack hard. But if we look, we have one level attack with a range of 8. Now, how do you determine the range? You count the squares between the 2 characters. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm in range, so he's able to shoot me. Let's do this. To be able to do this, you need to pick 1 enemy, which will be me, and he will need to roll a value that's equal to my defense value minus 1. So my defense value is 12. So let's have a look. And he rolls a 12. He does 3 damage to me. Oh, that's not nice. So because I have those damage, I will need to pick 3 cards that I will have to place into my wound deck. So I'm going to take this physical card and put it away, another physical card, and this. Maybe I'm not going to have to repair anything soon, so I'm going to use that card too. So he still has 2 actions left, but he spent his actions he can use in his attack phase, so we'll keep it at this, so I'm also able to do something before dying in front of the camera and all of you viewers. So now it's my turn. I have 6 action points and I can use 1 action point to move, and I'm going to move 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh. Yes, so now I'm up close and I can try to do some combat. I don't have many cards left to choose. I have 2 combat cards here that I'm going to try to use, and I'm going to try to use Flurry of Blows, because if I succeed I'll be able to do another set of damage. So let me see, I also need to pick 1 enemy, which will be that guard or that gunman, and it's also -1 of his defense value. He also has a defense value of 12, so I'll need to roll an 11. I need to have a melee item, which I have. It's this short sword. So I'm rolling and I roll a 16, which is successful. So what does this card do? It does damage, so I look at the damage of my weapon. Since it's a level 1 skill card I used, I look at the level 1 skill here and I do 4 damage. So this guy has 5 health, so he comes up close to 4 health. That means if I would be successful with another attack, I would lower his health and would come at his action points, and like I said before, when his health and action points reaches 0, he dies. So let us hope to be successful at this. But first I rolled a natural 10, so I have to check if my short sword I'm using is not broken by the action I have done. So to be able to do that, I will need to throw, and I throw a 7. I'm lucky, I can use my sword again. So I'm going to do another attack on him, and let us hope I throw an 11 or higher, and it's a 5. I'm not successful. Okay, so this is in my discard pile. I might be able to choose to use this medical card. So for now I have used 2 skill points or action points of the 6 I have available. So I'm going to try use this medical card to automatically get 1 card of healing back. So I'm going to place 1 card into my cooldown deck together with this card I was using before. Now I also have to play this card, and I'm having 3 action points left, which I'll be using to try to buy a card back. I really like this Flurry of Blows, so I'm going to buy it back, and I used 5 action points during this round. I have 1 action point left that I can spend on other actions, but this shows you how the game is played and how you are able to get cards back. You play skill cards, you activate your items, you have also a lot of several mini actions you can use during the game that doesn't take up any of the phases, but also uses some of the action points. Yes, indeed. There are also a lot of things that I don't cover right now to shorten the video a bit. You have range that is important, line of sight, you can prone, you can crawl, you can climb, several environments. So really the game comes with a lot of detail, a lot of aspects that's incorporated into the game. But from what I have shown you today, I think I have given you a nice overview of how the game plays, and I encourage you to check out the rules that you can find on the official website, also on the Kickstarter page, and also you can download the print and play for free. So please check out the game if you have any interest and you would like to have more information on some rather deeper aspects of the game. So this concludes this combat scenario. Let us go to my final conclusion. Okay, final thoughts time. Before I give you my conclusions, it's important to know two things. One, I'm not an experienced role-playing games player. I always found role-playing games hard to get into because, yeah, I missed the physical components of role-playing games. I also didn't like the fact that you have to remember all those different dice rolls you could have and stuff like that. Secondly, when we're playing, I'm mostly the guy that needs to explain the rules. So when we are playing a role-playing game, I'm sure I'm going to be the dungeon master, or in this game the deck master. So it's from this purpose or standpoint that I'm judging this game. So let me start with my conclusion. I was really impressed by the game. I didn't expect to find such deep and rich gameplay mechanics into this game. Like I said before, when the designers contacted me, it reminded me about Fate, and I was wondering, well, my first thought was, oh, another role-playing game with cards. But they do it completely different from Fate, and I really like the fact that the cards are what makes your character, and that it's also used to deal you wounds, and you have to be able to be careful about buying back those cards to be able to play those cards further and keeping track of your cooldown and wound deck. So I really like that. Also, the cards are really clear about what they do, the colors of the different abilities. I think it's really easy for the players to create their characters and to be sure about what they can do, make nice combos, when to use several cards in different kind of scenarios. I also like the fact that they include maps that you can use to play your scenarios on, and you have several tokens that come with the game that give you a visual aspect of the game, which really helps, for me at least, to be more immersed into the game. That said, I have a problem with the game from the standpoint of the deck master. There is really a lot to take into the account. I didn't cover every aspect of the game, it's just too much. It's really a deep game, which is a good thing, and it really does its best to make it as easy to come into the game as possible. But I would like to have more reference sheets or cards for the deck master, because each character can have several traits or flaws. That's really nice, a nice addition to the game. But the deck master has to know those things to be able to take that into account in his storytelling, to exploit those flaws, or taking into account that they have some of those traits that can benefit them. So the deck master really has a lot to take into account, and for me the feeling I have is when I would be the deck master, it would be hard to take all that things into account, and if you don't do that, yeah, you can play the game, of course, but you will lose a lot of the complexity and the richness that comes with this game. So I really hope they will be able to do something about that they will offer nice overviews of the different traits, what they mean, so I don't have to always take the book as the deck master and go looking from, oh okay, I know that person told me he had a troll skin, what does that trait does again. So if there is one thing I don't like during a game, that is that I always need to take the rulebook, search for that aspect of the game I'm trying to figure out and read it, because yeah, about immersion, if you have to do that, you are taken out of the game. So that's not a big thing, but if they would be able to achieve this, it would be great. Also, I'm really looking forward to see this game funded. It really deserves it. And how they will expand the game. Yes, I'm already thinking about expanding the game. The game really offers a lot of possibilities to expand the game with new items, with new skills, different kind of skills, but also completely unique new skills. And also I know they developed an app to create or make it easier to create your characters. I'm also looking forward to see what they will do with the tiles they are bringing. I guess it would be a great idea if they could make some kind of app or website where you have access to the different art of the tiles and the different scenery, so you can create your own maps and print them. Because although I really like the fact that they include those maps and those tokens, it also limits the game, because yeah, if you have played several scenarios on the same locations, it will get some kind of dull. So if they would be able to make some kind of app or website which allows the deck master to create new sceneries and print it in color and paste it like I did for this prototype, I see a bright future for this game. You will have endless possibilities of different kind of stories you can tell, different kind of characters you can create, different kind of opponents you can encounter. So yeah, I'm really positive about this game. There are a few things I don't like about it, most of it being too complex for the deck master. But then again, the game is not finished yet. I hope they listen to feedback and they might change it. So I really hope you have a nice idea about this game, Neon Sanctum. Be sure to check it out on their Kickstarter page. Thank you for tuning in and staying this long with me. Please keep enjoying playing board games together with family and friends, and as always, may the board be with you and the dice be ever in your favor. Bye bye!